The day I realized I was disappearing. No one noticed when it started. Not my friends, not my family, not the people I saw every day. Because nothing dramatic happened. I didn't lose everything. I didn't scream for help. I didn't post sad quotes online. I just started fading. It wasn't loud. It was subtle, like lowering the volume on yourself until even you can't hear who you are anymore. At first, it felt like normal exhaustion, work stress, life pressure, the usual, I'm just tired. But it wasn't tired. It was erosion. I stopped sharing opinions, stopped correcting people when they misunderstood me, stopped expressing excitement about things I used to love. It felt easier to agree, easier to stay neutral, easier to not take up space. Somewhere along the way, I became smaller. And the scariest part? No one objected, because a quieter version of you is easier for the world to handle. I remember sitting in a group of people I'd known for years. They were laughing, talking over each other, telling stories. I had one too, something that happened earlier that week, something that mattered to me. I opened my mouth to speak, and then I didn't. The moment passed. No one noticed. That's when it hit me. If I disappeared right now, emotionally, socially, how long would it take for anyone to realize? Not physically gone, just gone. Gone in the way you stop calling, stop texting first, stop initiating plans. How long before the silence becomes permanent? That thought didn't make me cry. It made me cold. I went home that night and sat on the floor instead of the bed. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't feel like I deserved comfort. The room was quiet, too quiet. And when silence stretches long enough, your mind starts filling it with things you didn't want to hear. You're replaceable. That thought came out of nowhere, or maybe it had been there for years, waiting. You're replaceable at work. You're replaceable in friendships. You're replaceable in relationships. I tried to argue with it, but the evidence felt convincing. People move on fast. Conversations continue without you. Life adjusts. The world does not pause for anyone. And maybe that's normal. But when you're already feeling invisible, that reality feels brutal. I started replaying moments, times I was talked over, times my feelings were minimized, times I said, "It's okay," when it wasn't. Each memory stacked on top of the other like quiet proof. I wasn't disappearing by accident. I had been erasing myself slowly for years to avoid conflict, to avoid rejection, to avoid being too much. And in trying not to be too much, I became nothing. Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt unfamiliar with the person staring back? Not because you changed physically, but because you don't recognize your own energy anymore? That's what scared me the most. I wasn't sad in a dramatic way. I was hollow, like someone had scooped out the center of me and left the shell functioning. I still went to work, still smiled at the right moments, still posted normal things. But internally, I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. The worst nights weren't the ones where I cried. They were the ones where I felt nothing. No anger, no passion, no clear sadness. Just a blank emotional screen. And when you feel nothing long enough, you start wondering if you'll ever feel fully again. I thought about reaching out to someone, but what would I say? I feel like I'm fading? That sounds dramatic. I feel invisible? That sounds insecure. I feel like if I stopped trying, no one would fight to keep me. That sounds desperate. So I said nothing. Silence is addictive. The longer you stay quiet, the harder it becomes to speak. Days turned into weeks. I stopped initiating conversations just to see what would happen. Some people didn't notice. Some people noticed after a while. One person texted, "You've been distant." I stared at that message for 10 minutes. Distant. That word felt unfair. I wasn't distant. I was drowning quietly. But drowning doesn't look like splashing when you've trained yourself to sink silently. I typed a response. "Yeah, just busy." Lie. Delete. "Yeah, just needed some space." Half-truth. Send. And just like that, the door closed again. There's a specific kind of pain that comes from realizing you've been emotionally surviving, not living. You make decisions based on what keeps the peace. You measure your words. You rehearse conversations in your head before they happen. You apologize for things that weren't your fault. And one day, you wake up and realize you don't know what you actually want anymore, because your entire personality became adaptation. That night, the worst one, I sat in the dark and asked myself something terrifying. If I keep going like this, will there be anything left of me in 5 years? Not physically. Internally, will I still have opinions, dreams, fire? Or will I just be whatever version of me makes everyone else comfortable? That question shook something, because for the first time, I wasn't scared of being alone. I was scared of losing myself completely. There's a difference. Loneliness hurts, but self-erasure destroys you slowly, and no one gives you sympathy for it because you look fine. You function. You succeed. You survive. But inside, you are shrinking. That night, sitting on the floor, I finally admitted something brutal. I wasn't afraid of people leaving. I was afraid that if they left, there would be nothing solid inside me to stand on. Because I had built my identity around being needed, being agreeable, being low maintenance, being strong. But strength without honesty becomes isolation. And isolation, when it lasts too long, becomes numbness. I didn't have a breakthrough. I didn't suddenly reclaim myself. What I had was awareness. And awareness can be painful. Because once you see how much of yourself you've abandoned, you can't unsee it. I wish I could say I stood up dramatically and decided to change everything. I didn't. Change was slower, ugly, uncomfortable. It started with tiny rebellions, saying, "I don't agree," letting silence be awkward instead of filling it, admitting, "That actually hurt." Small sentences, but they felt dangerous. Because when you've been disappearing for years, taking up space feels like breaking rules. I still have nights where that old fear returns. The fear of being replaceable. The fear of fading again. But now I recognize it. It's not proof that I'm worthless. It's a reminder of what happens when I abandon myself. If you're listening to this and you feel like you've been shrinking, like you've been editing yourself down to fit into other people's comfort, like you've become quieter, smaller, less visible, I need you to understand something. You are not disappearing because you are weak. You are disappearing because you've been surviving. But survival is not the same as living, and the world will not notice when you erase yourself. You have to notice. You have to decide that your voice, even if it shakes, deserves space. Because the darkest realization isn't that no one is coming to save you. It's realizing that you've been the one slowly abandoning yourself. And maybe the most intense battle you'll ever fight is choosing to come back to yourself before there's nothing left.